The Chicago Bears just unleashed a monster, and the rest of the NFL is about to find out what happens when you give a generational talent the keys to an offensive machine designed by a certified genius. For months, critics wondered if Caleb Williams was a bust, if the hype was overblown, if Chicago had wasted another first overall pick on another failed quarterback. But those doubts just got obliterated in the most spectacular fashion possible. The sophomore signal caller is breaking franchise records, leading game-winning drives, and playing a style of football that's equal parts beautiful chaos and surgical precision. This isn't just the arrival of a good quarterback. This is the emergence of a superstar. And if you're a defensive coordinator in the NFC North, you better start updating your resume because Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson are about to make your life a living nightmare. Let's set the stage because understanding where the Bears are now requires understanding the absolute disaster that was 2024. When Caleb Williams entered the NFL as the first overall pick, expectations weren't just high, they were astronomical. This wasn't your typical promising prospect. This was a generational talent, a quarterback who could supposedly do things with a football that we hadn't seen since Patrick Mahomes burst onto the scene. The comparisons were immediate and relentless. The arm strength, the improvisation, the fearless downfield throws, everything about Caleb screamed future superstar. And for Chicago Bears fans who had suffered through decades of quarterback purgatory, watching legends like Justin Fields, Mitchell Trubisky, Jay Cutler, and countless others fail to deliver, Caleb Williams represented hope. Real, tangible, generational hope. On paper, everything looked perfect. The Bears had assembled what was supposed to be one of the best supporting casts any rookie quarterback had ever received. DJ Moore was coming off a 1-300-yard season and looked like a true number one receiver. Keenan Allen, one of the most reliable pass catchers in the entire league, was brought in to provide veteran leadership and sure hands. Then, to add even more firepower, Chicago used the 9th overall pick in the same draft to select Rome Odunze, a talented wide receiver with massive upside. This wasn't some rebuild where the rookie quarterback had to make do with scraps. This was supposed to be a ready-made playoff contender. Chicago was crowned the kings of the offseason, and when Caleb started showing flashes of brilliance in the preseason, the hype reached a fever pitch. Bears fans were already booking playoff tickets in their minds. Then reality hit like a freight train carrying disappointment and broken dreams. The offensive line, which was supposed to be serviceable enough to give Caleb time to work, turned into a turnstile convention. They couldn't block anybody. Defenders were running free into the backfield like they had been given VIP passes to destroy the rookie quarterback. Caleb Williams was sacked an absolutely staggering 68 times in 2024. 68 times. For context, C.J. Stroud, who led all other quarterbacks in sacks taken, was brought down 52 times. That 16-sack difference is the gap between having time to operate and constantly running for your life. And while Caleb certainly held onto the ball too long at times, trying to make plays when nothing was there, the bottom line was undeniable. The offensive line was one of the worst in the entire NFL, and they were getting their franchise quarterback murdered on a weekly basis. But the offensive line disaster was just the beginning of Chicago's 2024 nightmare. The coaching staff, which was supposed to unlock Caleb's potential and develop him into a star, proved to be completely incompetent. Offensive coordinator Shane Waldron quickly became public enemy number one in Chicago. His offense ranked 30th in the league in total offense and 24th in scoring after just 9 games. Think about that. You have a generational quarterback prospect, 3 legitimately talented receivers, and your offense is 30th in the league. That's not player failure. That's coaching malpractice. Waldron was fired before the season even hit the halfway point, which tells you everything you need to know about how catastrophically bad things were going. But it didn't stop there. Head coach Matt Eberflus, who had somehow survived previous disasters, was also shown the door before November even finished. When your head coach doesn't make it to December, you know the dysfunction has reached terminal levels. Despite all the chaos, despite the historically bad offensive line, Despite cycling through coordinators and coaches like they were disposable coffee cups, Caleb Williams still managed to put together a rookie season that was actually pretty damn impressive when you look at the numbers. He threw for 3,541 yards, 20 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions. He set new Bears franchise rookie records for completions, yards, and touchdown passes. His streak of 354 passes without an interception was the longest by any rookie and the 4th longest for all passers in NFL history. Let that sink in. A rookie quarterback playing behind a horrific offensive line with dysfunctional coaching managed to go 354 consecutive passes without throwing a pick. That's not luck. That's talent, decision-making, and an innate ability to protect the football even when everything around you is falling apart. The Bears front office, to their credit, recognized that they had something special in Caleb Williams and that they needed to fix the disasters around him immediately. Step 1 was hiring the hottest coaching name in all of football, Ben Johnson. This wasn't just any coordinator looking for a promotion. This was the offensive mastermind who had turned the Detroit Lions into an absolute point-scoring juggernaut. For years, Johnson's offenses had been torching defenses with creative play design, motion, misdirection, and a relentless attack mentality. He was the most sought-after coaching candidate in the league, and he could have chosen any job he wanted. And he chose Chicago. He chose Caleb Williams. That decision alone should have told everyone something important. Ben Johnson, who had studied film on every quarterback in the league, saw something special in Caleb. He saw a player worth betting his career on, even though the Bears played in arguably the toughest division in football. Think about the NFC North for a second. The Detroit Lions were widely considered the best team in the entire NFC. The Minnesota Vikings had just come within inches of stealing the division title and looked like legitimate contenders. The Green Bay Packers were loaded with talent and appeared ready to make a deep playoff run. And then there were the Chicago Bears, the perpetual punching bags of the division, a franchise that had become synonymous with quarterback failure and organizational dysfunction. Most coaches would have looked at that situation and run the other way. But Ben Johnson didn't hesitate. He saw Caleb Williams and decided that was enough. That kind of belief from one of the sharpest offensive minds in football is the kind of endorsement that changes narratives. Next came fixing the offensive line, which was priority number 1 if the Bears wanted to keep their franchise quarterback alive and functional. They went out and signed Drew Dolman, the top free agent center available, to anchor the middle of the line. Then they bolstered both guard positions through trades, bringing in Jonah Jackson and Joe Thuney, 2 experienced veterans who brought credibility and championship pedigree. Thuney, in particular, was a massive addition, a 4-time Super Bowl champion who knew exactly what it took to protect a quarterback and open running lanes. Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright returned at the tackle positions, though Jones has since been replaced by Theo Benedette, an undrafted sophomore who has impressed beyond expectations. When the dust settled, Pro Football Focus ranked the Bears' offensive line as the 4th best in the entire league heading into the 2025 season. That's not just an upgrade. That's a complete transformation from worst to best, from liability to legitimate strength. And just to make sure Caleb had every possible weapon at his disposal, the Bears continued to add playmakers on offense. They drafted tight end Colston Loveland with the 10th overall pick, adding a legitimate receiving threat at a position that had been a black hole for years. In the 2nd round, they grabbed wide receiver Luther Burden, giving the offense even more speed and versatility. And in the 7th round, they found Kyle Mungie, a running back who nobody expected to contribute immediately, but who has already become a legitimate weapon. When you combine all of this with the returning stars like DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and DeAndre Swift, you're looking at an offense that is absolutely loaded with talent at every single position. If the 2024 setup was supposed to be perfect but wasn't, the 2025 version actually delivered on that promise. Week 1 of the 2025 season was Chicago's coming out party, at least for one half of football. On Monday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings, Caleb Williams looked like a completely different quarterback. Gone was the frantic rookie scrambling for his life behind a collapsing pocket. In his place was a calm, composed, confident signal caller operating within Ben Johnson's beautifully crafted offense. On the opening drive, Caleb was patient, taking the easy completions underneath, moving the chains methodically, and showing off his ridiculous arm talent with a laser beam to the sideline that only Rome Odunze could catch. He capped off the drive with a scramble on 3rd and 6, taking it himself into the end zone for the touchdown. It was a perfect blend of discipline and playmaking, structure and improvisation. This was the Ben Johnson offense in action, and it looked absolutely unstoppable. Throughout the first half, Caleb was surgical. He completed 13 of 16 passes for 112 yards and added that rushing touchdown. His completion percentage sat at 81.3%, and he was making the kind of quick, decisive throws that get defensive coordinators fired. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked like the Bears had finally figured it out. But then the second half happened, and reality came crashing back down. Caleb's completion percentage plummeted from 81.3% to just 42%. The offense stalled. The Vikings mounted a comeback. And just like that, Ben Johnson's debut as a head coach ended in a loss. Week 2 brought more of the same frustrating pattern. Against the Detroit Lions, Caleb and the offense came out firing, completing 73.7% of his passes for 136 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. But once again, the second half collapse followed, with completion percentage dropping to 45% and the offense sputtering when they needed to close the game. Another loss? Another frustrating performance. Another round of questions about whether the Bears had actually fixed anything or if they were just the same old dysfunctional franchise wearing a new disguise. Here's where context becomes absolutely critical. Ben Johnson's offense is not plug and play. It's not the kind of system where you can just show up and execute. It's complex, intricate, and requires everyone to be in perfect sync. Johnson builds his offenses around motion, shifts, play action, and deception. Every play has multiple moving parts. Receivers are moving before the snap. Linemen are adjusting protections on the fly. The quarterback is processing pre-snap reads, making adjustments at the line, and executing plays that might have double kills and alerts built in. Veteran quarterback Case Keenum, who has played in a dozen different offensive systems over his 12-year career, described Johnson's scheme as a greatest hits compilation of every kind of offense he's ever seen. He also mentioned that Johnson puts enormous pressure on his quarterbacks to handle play calls without wristbands, to process new information every single day, and to understand the intricate details that make the system work. In other words, there was always going to be an adjustment period. Caleb Williams, as talented as he is, was learning an entirely new language. The second half struggles weren't a sign that he couldn't execute. They were a sign that he was still learning, still processing, still getting comfortable with the complexity of what Johnson was asking him to do. And that's okay. That's expected. The scary part for the rest of the NFL is that even while he's still learning, even while the offense is still installing new concepts and working through growing pains, Caleb is already showing flashes of what this system can be when it's fully operational. And those flashes are absolutely terrifying. Week 3 was the turning point. Against the Dallas Cowboys, Caleb Williams exploded for 298 yards and 4 touchdowns. This wasn't just a good game, this was a statement. This was Caleb showing everyone what happens when the offensive line holds up, when the play calls put him in position to succeed, and when he's allowed to just play football without constantly running for his life. The Cowboys' defense had no answers. Caleb was picking them apart with quick throws, deep shots, perfectly timed play-action passes, and improvisational magic when plays broke down. This performance kicked off a 4-game winning streak that took the Bears to a 4-2 record through 7 weeks. Suddenly the narrative shifted. The doubters got quieter, the believers got louder, and the rest of the NFC started realizing that Chicago might actually be a problem. A loss to Baltimore in Week 8 threatened to derail the momentum, but Week 9 against the Cincinnati Bengals was when everything came together in the most beautiful, chaotic, unforgettable way possible. This game was a signature moment for so many reasons. and it provided a glimpse into just how special this Bears offense can be when all the pieces are clicking. The game started with Ben Johnson's creativity on full display. After marching down the field on the opening drive, it was Caleb Williams who ended up on the receiving end of a 2-yard touchdown pass from DJ Moore. Yes, you read that right. The quarterback caught a touchdown. That's the kind of creative, unconventional, let's just have fun with this mentality that Johnson brings, and it set the tone for an absolutely wild game. What followed was a back-and-forth shootout where Caleb Williams showed every single tool in his arsenal. He was making big-time throws downfield, threading passes into tight windows, and also using his legs to extend plays and pick up crucial yards as a runner. The Bears rookies were having breakout performances. 7th-round running back Kyle Mungie looked absolutely unstoppable, gashing the Bengals' defense for huge chunks of yardage. First-round tight end Colston Loveland caught his first career touchdown and looked like a legitimate weapon in the passing game. At one point, the Bears were in complete control, leading 41-27 after Caleb had orchestrated 4 consecutive scoring drives in the second half, including 3 touchdowns. The game looked over. Chicago was rolling. Everything was clicking. And then, in the most Bears way possible, the defense completely fell apart. Cincinnati scored 2 touchdowns in just over a minute, taking a 42-41 lead with only 54 seconds left on the clock. The kind of collapse that breaks teams, the kind of loss that haunts a locker room for weeks, the kind of moment where a young quarterback either rises to the occasion or crumbles under the weight of pressure. Caleb Williams had played well all game, but now he was facing a different kind of test. His team needed a game-winning drive, and there was less than a minute to make it happen. No timeouts, no margin for error, just pure clutch execution. What happened next was the moment that announced Caleb Williams as a legitimate NFL star. The offensive line, which had protected him well all game, suddenly started breaking down. On each of the first 3 plays, Caleb was forced to scramble, running for his life, buying time, desperately trying to find someone open. On 3rd and 10, with the game on the line, he somehow found enough space to scramble upfield for a crucial 14-yard gain. But the drive wasn't over. On the very next play, the offensive line finally gave him a clean pocket, and Caleb stood tall and delivered an absolute laser beam up the seam to Colston Loveland. The throw was perfect, layered over the linebacker, dropping in just as the safety arrived, giving Loveland a chance to turn and protect himself. The rookie tight end caught the ball, broke through the tackle attempts of 2 defenders, and rumbled 58 yards for the game-winning touchdown. Pandemonium, absolute pandemonium. Caleb Williams finished the game with 280 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. He added 53 rushing yards on the ground. Oh, and he also caught 2 passes for 22 yards and a touchdown because why not do literally everything? That's the definition of a complete performance. That's the kind of game that gets replayed in highlight reels for years. And most importantly, that was Caleb Williams leading his 3rd game-winning drive of the season, proving that he has the clutch gene, the poise under pressure, and the ability to deliver when everything is on the line. And here's the truly scary part for the rest of the NFL. We're only 8 games into the Ben Johnson era. This offense is still learning. The players are still getting comfortable with the system. The rookies are still developing. And yet they're already putting up performances like this. Already breaking defenses. Already winning games in dramatic fashion. What happens when this system is fully installed? What happens when Caleb has a full off-season to master every concept, every adjustment, every wrinkle that Johnson wants to add? What happens when the timing with receivers is perfect? When the offensive line is even more cohesive? When the rookies have a full year of experience under their belts? The ceiling is terrifying, and every defensive coordinator in the NFC is having nightmares about what's coming. Caleb Williams can make every throw. Deep balls, touch passes, back shoulder fades, lasers into tight windows, you name it, he can do it. He's also a legitimate threat as a runner, able to extend plays, pick up first downs, and even take it to the house when defenses lose containment. He's already shown he can handle pressure, both literally in the pocket and figuratively in clutch moments. He's protecting the football, making smart decisions, and playing within the structure of the offense while still adding his own improvisational magic when opportunities arise. That combination of traits is what separates good quarterbacks from great ones. And Caleb Williams is showing all the signs of being great. The Bears faithful, who have suffered through so many false dawns, so many failed quarterbacks, so many seasons of disappointment and heartbreak, finally have a reason to believe. This isn't just hope based on potential. This is belief based on results. Caleb is breaking franchise records. He's winning games. He's making clutch plays. He's developing chemistry with his weapons. He's operating within one of the most innovative offensive systems in football. And he's only going to get better. The version of Caleb Williams that the NFL feared is here, and it's only the beginning. So the question now isn't whether Caleb Williams can be a franchise quarterback. That question has been answered with a resounding yes. The question is, how far can he take this team? Can the Bears actually compete for the NFC North title in a division loaded with powerhouses? Can they make a legitimate playoff run? Can Caleb Williams elevate this franchise from perennial disappointment to legitimate contender? The early returns suggest that the answer might be yes to all of those questions. And if you're a Bears fan, that's the most exciting thing you've heard in decades. Hit that like button if you're ready to see Caleb Williams take over the NFL. Drop a comment below with your prediction for how far the Bears can go this season. Do you think they can win the division, make a deep playoff run? And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because this Caleb Williams story is just getting started, and you don't want to miss a single moment of what could be the beginning of a dynasty in Chicago.